Yeah, that's okay because I didn't have a chance to do anything with my appearance today either, so. Well, yes. So far we don't have any viewers yet, but in case anyone watches this on the replay, I just want to give a short intro to us. We are Dragonfly Arts and Creatives Collective, and this is our monthly movie club. So we'll be discussing the movie that we watched as a group today, and
And that movie was The General.
which is probably the oldest movie that I've seen ever.
Really?
Oh, no, wait, I lied. It's probably, well, because I think in film school we watched the first movie ever made.
Yeah, like Journey to the Moon?
No.
Or like
The Great Train Robbery?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or at least we watched a scene of it. I don't remember.
It's not a very long movie.
No, it's not. But yeah, that's a little bit about us. If you want, you can join into the discussion at any time. If you're watching in the Facebook group, you have to give StreamYard permission to see your info if you want us to see your name. Otherwise, you'll just pop up as Facebook user and we won't know your real name. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking all of up like the really, really old movies and everything.
I literally just finished watching this movie right before we came on here.
So it's fresh in your mind.
Quite.
Right before we watched, or before we got onto this, I watched City Lights, which is Charlie Chaplin, because I had a lot of opinions. Like I was telling Becca before we started the stream, Ryan and I actually watched this movie together. And that was my big thing, because to give some background on the movie before we just jump into talking about everything. The movie The General is a 1926 silent era comedy. It's very weird genre-wise. It changes depending on like where you look at it. It's a really old movie. It actually had its copyright lapse in like the 50s. So
so we could actually like watch it together on stream if we want.
A fun fact that I discovered while we were watching the movie is I pulled it up on Wikipedia. If you go to the Wikipedia page for the movie The General, you can actually watch the entire movie on there. It's just there. It's like 70 minutes long. It's a silent film. It was directed by Buster Keaton and stars Buster Keaton, and I am a big fan of Buster Keaton, which is why I picked the movie in the first place. But yeah, genre-wise, sometimes it's like it's a war movie, and sometimes it's like it's an action movie, and sometimes it says it's a comedy, and sometimes it's a romance. It's very all over the place. I would probably define it as like a war comedy, maybe. Ryan disagrees.
Feels
Ryan
accurate.
doesn't think that it should be a comedy.
No, it was absolutely a comedy. I'm just saying, what a weird choice of to make it a comedy. Here's a very serious drama about a train, stealing a train in the South during the Civil War. This seems rife for comic.
I meant to read because it's based off of a memoir given from a Confederate soldier who, it's called The Great Locomotive Chase, and it is something that actually happened. And
I think he was actually a Union soldier. 1863. William
Fuller was the actual guy's name. William Fuller was the guy's name, and I meant to read all of this and then I just didn't. But it's based off of a real event that happened, that a Civil War like soldier wrote a memoir based on this weird locomotive chase that happened. And at some point Buster Keaton was like, you know what? Let's make this a thing.
I mean, I think it's the only train chase film I've ever seen.
So far, until Fast and the Furious goes back in time, we're gonna drift this train across the ice.
I learned a lot about trains watching this movie. But I don't. Yeah. Have you watched a lot of Charlie Chaplin or any Charlie Chaplin movies, Beckett?
Not so much, actually.
So I want to say that they always talk about like the great three of like the silent film era, but I can really only ever think of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. And they are usually like pitted against each other in this like comedic thing. And so, which is why I bring this up often. And that was my big thing with Ryan, was discussing the differences between Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. But Ryan also hasn't watched Charlie Chaplin recently. I think I am alone in that category. um, but what a crazy age of just like film where like we have these two guys who are like, it's silent film era, let's do physical gags constantly, and they do it ridiculously well and in ways that like as I was watching this movie I was like, that had to hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking about how, like, this movie was definitely made before any safety regulations existed.
Right.
In filmmaking. And like, yeah, just like watching some of the stunts and the like the props used and things like that, I was like, oh, please be careful.
This is actually a lot tamer than I remember it. I don't know if I've ever actually watched The General in full. I've seen like bits and pieces of it. But yeah, most of the things that I've seen of Buster Keaton that made me go, oh Jesus, I think are from Steamboat Bill Jr. In the group on the guide, I actually linked to a really good YouTube video about Buster Keaton and the way that he did gags. They are all done practically. Ryan and I had the fun game of, is it a miniature or are they actually doing it? And there were times where we weren't sure.
Right.
It didn't occur to me at any point during this movie that any of the sets or props could be miniatures.
You can like see a halo where they're composited together sometimes, but they did a really great job of hiding it. And I think that's key for Buster Keaton especially, is his storytelling style is very much based on like what the camera sees. So to bring it back to like the difference between like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton is, I think that Charlie Chaplin is a really, really fun character who exists in a normal world. Everybody around him, everything works normally, and it's just a weird dude doing stunts in a normal world. And that's just it. Buster Keaton exists in like some alternate reality where the only thing anybody can ever see at any point in time is exactly what is on the screen. And he really focuses on that. And so there's a really cool scene where he's like hiding under the table in the Union General's house. And like the guy burns a hole into the side of it. And from one side looking in where it's actually his eye, I think that's the actual shot. And then when they do it, they had to like shoot an image of the hole and then like composite it with a picture of the girl talking to get that. And so he's very good at that.
That was a great scene because it was very much using like the trickery of theater. And you don't see that very much in movies, especially nowadays. But like how when they burn the hole into the tablecloth and then the two soldiers lift it up and we can see him, but they can't. Like you don't think that because like watching a movie, you're used to it being, oh no, he's discovered. Nowadays, anyway.
Yeah. I would highly suggest watching that YouTube video. It's from a guy on YouTube. I think it's a Nerd Writer.
Oh, I love Nerd Writer.
Yeah, he does like kind of opinion-based videos, and sometimes it gets a little bit preachy or a little bit too opinionated, but he does a lot of really deep research onto like culture, and I really like his Buster Keaton one.
Interesting though, like I had a lot of feelings through just watching this and sympathizing with the Confederates.
A strange choice indeed.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at, again, like on the Wikipedia page, but it seems that the book is from the Union side, but Buster Keaton didn't believe the audience would accept Confederates as the villains in 1926, and I'm guessing maybe that's just a difference of
What?
what audience he was aiming at. It's a strange choice, but
It's a testament to how poorly Reconstruction went.
Yeah, that is weird. I kind of just like assumed that the whole thing like took place as that, like
right.
William Fuller was a Confederate person. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure, like, and I found myself as I was watching, I was like, there were a lot of Confederates who were just fighting on the side of where they lived. Like, they didn't have ideology that they were fighting for or things like that. They just happened to be there and wanted to protect their land or their lives or, whatever. And so it's like trying to come at it from that kind of vantage point and like, yes, the higher ups were in it for a certain reason, but that doesn't mean that everybody in the Confederacy was that. So I was like, well, he's just a normal Southern guy who got mixed up in a war.
I mean, to be fair, he only wanted to enlist to impress a girl, so.
True. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, we didn't realize that. And then he goes to enlist, and there's just like a Confederate flag in the background, and both Ryan and I go,
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah. It didn't dawn on me until the general at the enlistment center was like, he'll be more useful to the South as a train operator. And I was like, wait, the South? Wait, we're rooting for the bad guys?
I think Fuller was the person who it actually happened to, but the memoir was written by William Pittenger.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It was an expensive movie.
They destroyed trains and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Is that in today's money or old time money?
No, that's old timey money.
Oh gosh.
So it comes out to be about 13 million today.
To make it, yeah, so it made $1 million in the box office, but in back in the day money.
Wow, $1 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot for back then.
Honestly, it's kind of insane now, like looking at this, that somebody allowed it to enter public domain in the 1950s. Like, you could have redone that. It wasn't, because I imagine it was under Buster Keaton's estate, but like he was still alive when this went into. Yeah.
Again, I think it was. I don't think it made money. I think it was a financial failure. I think the budget was so high. I don't think it made its money back.
I mean, if it cost, you said 13 million to make,
right? It cost $750,000 then money, and this is it only made $470,000 then money. So
maybe like as part of the box office. No, it says the box office was 1 million on Wikipedia.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking to.
Yeah, so the budget was 7,500,000.
Yeah. Maybe that's international. In the U.S., it only made $500,000.
Lots of different things, but yeah, it was only under a copyright registration for 28 years.
I mean, the laws have changed so drastically too.
And because of how high of a budget it was, he lost his independence as a filmmaker and was forced into a restrictive deal with MGM. Yeah. And also, I told Ryan this while we were watching this, but Marion Mack, the lady in it, who does fantastic.
Oh yeah, she got stepped on a bunch.
She did get stepped on a bunch. She did all of the stunts the guys were doing, but in a large dress.
Large dress and heels.
It took like 6 months to make this movie, and she only went on to do like one other big movie after this, and then was like, this is too much work. And like it was so stressful for her that she like kind of just left doing movies.
Fair enough. I mean, I was watching her during some of the like scenes where they were trying to get the train running and things like that, and she was working her ass off. I was like, man, she's actually like running that steamer. Like, wow, it's a lot of work.
I like that she uncouples a train while like over a guy's shoulder, and like nobody talked about it beforehand that that's what was going to happen. So she just like had to do that all of her own. She has to learn how to operate the train. And people just seem to get mad at her because she's just a little bit behind on having to learn how to do it. Yeah, she's the star of the show. Her, and then the bear that didn't know where it was going.
The bear.
Yeah. Do you remember the bear?
I don't remember the bear.
It's like a very, very short scene where he like he's in the woods in the rain running around, and there's like lightning, and then there's a bear in the background, and the bear has like a collar on it, and like you can see like that it is like a bear that somebody has chained over there, but it doesn't know what to do, so it's just kind of like
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I do remember that scene, but
yeah.
Yeah, just like looking at all of the stunts that they had to perform and thinking about how there was no such thing as like special effects. Like the closest is that it got was the big explosions and things like that. But, you know, everything else you had to actually do it, and just watching it made me exhausted.
Does it make you more exhausted now that you knew it took 6 months to film?
Oh my God. Now it just makes me think about like, you know, all of those scenes with her running around the train and being dumped on water, and like just all the stuff that they did to her during that. Like, how many takes did they do of all of them if it took that long?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, again, I imagine then they did rehearsals, right? They didn't really. You don't commit it to film because film is, expensive.
Finite
And
resource, yeah.
apparently, one of the most dangerous stunts was the one where he's sitting on the coupling rod in the beginning of the movie, and he gets lifted up, and it, yada yada yada. Apparently that was extremely dangerous because when it's starting up, they tend to spin the wheel too fast, and it could have thrown him. That was one of the more dangerous stunts in the movie.
They all looked incredibly dangerous.
I'm wondering if I can present onto here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
We're going to see. This is not, because like I said, a lot of the stunts that I know of Buster Keaton's actually come from a different movie, not the General, but I picked the General one because it's the first name that came to mind, and also it is widely regarded as like one of the best pieces of American cinema to have ever existed. Let me see if I can present. I don't know how to do this. Share a screen. Yeah. So this is going to come from YouTube. I think I need Beckett to add it.
Oh, yeah.
This is what I see as like the quintessential like Buster Keaton movie and everything of
I'm just like, how did they make so much wind?
Big old fan. I wonder if they brought an airplane.
There's so much wind that there's an entire gag in this movie about him trying to stand against it. But this right here is what I always think of when I think of
Yeah, this is the one. That's the shot.
Boop. Oh my God. That's insane. Like
Like no marks on the ground or anything.
1 millimeter in the wrong direction, and he would have been done. Jesus.
It's just gonna keep going.
Best of but
Stop the
Buster
screen.
Keaton.
I mean, we can still watch the Best of Buster Keaton. So the start of that Best of Buster Keaton, I should have kept that going, because this is where I learned a lot about trains for this movie, is because I think about this one specific scene where it's like him coming at the screen rather quickly, and then it just stops and it's like him. And I was like, the only way they could do that, right, is to like move the camera into him with a stationary train. But turns out, if you ever like watch those car commercials where it's like cars going down like those winding Italian hills, and like it looks like they're going really fast, it turns out they're only going like 10 miles an hour at the most. And
That's sped up.
yeah, no, it's not even sped up. It's just that the human eye just thinks that that's fast, because that's fairly fast. Trains from this time frame only got up to 15 miles per hour at the most.
Yeah.
What?
And so like they just stop them on a dime because they can.
So
you can't stop a
hang
train
on.
now.
They were sending trains across the country going, like, basically if I were to ride a bird scooter.
I think that well, trains in general have to slow down when they're in populated areas, but they can speed up in between those time things. So I think for the area that this takes place in, they said that even modern day trains only get up to 40 miles per hour because it's just such a populated area. So I imagine it's something like they can probably get across the Midwest at like 30 to 40 miles an hour. But like for this area, they were only going like, 10 to 15 miles at the most.
Well, they did appear to be going pretty slowly.
They did.
Which I understand, because they were doing so many dangerous stunts, like around moving trains. Like anybody could have gotten their foot crushed at any moment.
But again, going back to the fact that this is an actual thing that happened, he actually did run after the train in real life, in the memoir.
Well, and they actually did in the movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's feasible that you could run after a train during this time frame.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
So are you inspired? Are you going to go look at some more Buster Keaton? Did I
Probably not, gonna be honest. I'm not a huge silent movie fan. I like to multitask. So if I'm watching a silent movie, I have to pay attention.
I think it goes back to like way back in, and I know each other from like circus and like going back to these old vaudeville like physical comedy sort of things. I like Buster Keaton more than I like Charlie Chaplin, because I can handle like Buster Keaton's crazy world more than I can handle Charlie Chaplin's crazy character in like large chunks of time. But if you're ever inspired for like movement inspiration, definitely check out like the shorts, because they have that same thing of like, I don't know how somebody thought doing any of these stunts are safe, but they only take like 5 minutes.
Well, they probably weren't thinking about safety. They were probably just what's going to look good. And especially like we kind of touched on it earlier about how just stunts had to be so physical and over the top, especially if it was comedic, because of the medium. Like that was the only way to tell a story. And you don't want to be like, yeah, you can project words on the screen, but you don't want your whole movie to just be, slide and then a little bit of action, then slide and then some action, back and forth like that. It's boring.
I mean, and that's what movies were. Like Buster Keaton never wanted that, which is why there are large chunks of this movie where I'm just going, what is happening? Because he felt like if he couldn't tell it through that sort of physical storytelling, then he's failed.
Well, I agree with him, because I found that much more entertaining than just like, and I read subtitles. Like that's different though.
Oh, Ryan, do you want to talk about those subtitles? Sorry, we watched a whole thing about subtitles.
Well, sure. No, I was getting into a rabbit hole of why did Buster Keaton switch it to the point of view of the South when everyone was telling him don't do it. He couldn't get the so he tried to shoot it with the original, the actual engine, the General.
Oh.
but they wouldn't allow it because A, he changed the story, and B, it was a comedy, and everyone's like, don't do it. Like, why are you making a Civil War comedy? And from this article, who wrote this, Kristen Hunt, the belief is that he was extremely motivated by D.W. Griffith, who, if you don't know, did a movie. He's, again, an amazing filmmaker, but he did a movie called Birth of a Nation, which is controversial, and you may have seen it in film school. It was talked about a lot.
I don't think we watched it, but it is well known.
Right. For those who don't know, it basically paints the Confederacy and the KKK as saving, like they had a noble cause, and the whole his reason being, of course, is that D.W. Griffiths was his father was a general or some sort of high-ranking official in the Confederate army. So he was, I think, trying to like spin the well, maybe it wasn't all, listen, the South wasn't all bad, and was trying to get that. And I think in turn, Buster Keaton, who was inspired to make movies by D.W. Griffith, was trying to like lean into that fact.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I don't think that everyone in the South was bad. Like I said, like,
sure,
there were a handful of people who, were just normal, decent people who got caught up in something, but still everyone was racist. Like that.
right.
An exception. Even the Northerners were racist. Like,
right.
They're still bad on that level.
But there's a difference between like enlisting because it's the area you're in, and then seeing a story and being like, well, time to switch the sides, knowing the outcome and having that as your history.
Yeah, which is an interesting choice. Like Ryan was saying, like, why have the South be the good guys when we know how it ended and we know what they were fighting for? So
I feel like it's still, so I guess it's been called, at least in whatever the circle this is, where news meets scholarly match. I don't know. Anyways, but it's called the Lost Cause.
Lost Cause theory. It's a revisionist political construction.
Right. So they believe that this is a continuation of that, of trying to like sweep the the negative stuff and instead portray a.
I mean, I can kind of see, like, even without that level of it, just being like, well, we know the South lost, so they're kind of the underdogs, and we like to root for underdogs, and maybe, I don't know.
I guess he spent time there as part of his family's vaudeville act in the South, but he was raised in Kansas.
It was just very jarring at the end when he runs up on the rock and holds up a giant Confederate flag.
Right.
I was like, oh, yeah, that's a thing.
And I think then there's a part of this article also is that he was losing his audience. He was trying to find a very niche audience. He was losing like a large swath of, let's say, I think this is the Northern fans.
Right.
So I think he was trying to pander a little bit to like, what's a demographic I can just, again, this is before demographics, right?
Yeah, but you have to think how much of the country, even at that time, was Southern revisionists. Probably
right.
Not proportion.
Well, the year that this came out was the same year that the Daughters of the Confederacy raised a statue to the KKK.
Oh.
So it was going strong, 1926.
I mean, they were trying. They're trying their best, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. So not a great history, but that's fine. The movie was expensive, went over budget, was incredibly dangerous, but
still entertaining, very
entertaining, changed the game.
Yeah.
Kind of, especially in a time where you didn't get a lot of moving shots. Yeah. I mean, we talked about it, like it was a car following a train, which in 19
it's something that we don't think about now, but like, when you think about the time frame, it's just like,
I just assume that of all of the movement shots where they are like when he's taking her out of the window on the train car to get into the stack, that's against like a moving background, and
Hmm.
they're in a studio and somebody's going like this to the cars
Right.
to make it look like they're
Right.
moving. Because that if they did that on a moving train, that's fucking insane.
No,
Like,
I think
They
they did.
for some of them. They
Yeah.
did 100%. And you can tell because like when there's like stagnant shots where like you can tell that the background is like on a pulley that they're just moving. And they're usually like he is stagnant like in the frame
Right.
completely.
The shot doesn't
But
move. Yeah.
there's a lot of
Mhm.
those shots where you'll see them moving from the side and like the background looks real, but then if they pan to a different shot, you can like see the road next to it. So they had like a stretch of road that they would just move this train along, film alongside it, and then back it up and do it again.
Right.
We
And
think we actually talked about like whether or not they actually had that or like
that is to say too, though, that the train, even though it can go 15, it could have been going 5 or even less because of
Because
the
of
way
the amount of movement they were doing around it. Yeah.
Right.
Even so, like, even if a train is only going 5 miles an hour, if you fall down in between the cars and you
Yeah.
get run over, you're done. Like, there's no.
Well, yeah.
the more I think about this movie, and because I did just watch like another movie from that time frame, like earlier today and stuff, it was shot a lot like a modern movie.
Hmm.
And I think it's very easy for us to take that for granted of
Mhm.
Ryan is always telling me about like how like you watch these old movies and they seem boring, but you have to remember that like they're the first time anyone did that. And
Yeah.
this movie, like in the way it was shot, is extremely modern and quite honestly holds up in a lot regards. Like the way he does framing holds up, the way the movement works holds up. And it's unparalleled by anything else at that time where all you have is stagnant shots.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely were moments where I would assume that they were shooting against a moving background on cars that were like just being shaken by people on set, but I couldn't really tell. So now I want to watch it again.
And look for specific shots. Yeah, no, I mean we could find, I'm sure, very specific. Yeah, like you said, there was the composite. There was a strange one where he knocked a dude out and the guy fell, and then it felt like they did some like they cut that frame out, and then because he moved or something, and like not looped it, but just froze it until Buster Keaton moved him again. I don't know. There were like little film tricks in there.
Mhm.
But no, they did blow up the train. You were correct. They shot it on 6 cameras, and it was 4 hours late. They built real bridges. So that scene with the gunfighting in the dam, it's because they built an actual dam to change the depth of the river, and then they
Wow.
broke the dam to let it flood, and all
Wow.
those people getting washed away was.
That was crazy dangerous too. Like just letting the river come and wash you away. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, apparently some of the other accidents included in this movie were Buster Keaton got knocked out. An AD got shot in the face with a blank cartridge.
Oh God.
wow.
Train wheel ran over a brakeman's foot. And then the train's wood-burning engine caused numerous fires that often spread to forests and farmers' haystacks. What a... Oof.
I'm sure they loved that.
Yeah, I guess they had to even take a 4-week break because of Keaton got sick from smoke inhalation.
Well, because at that time, trains were operated on coal, right? Not wood.
I mean, I think these trains were operated on wood.
No, but
I mean, yeah, I think for that time, I think they had upgraded to coal, but I think
Mhm.
that these specific trains that they were using were wood still.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, crazy movie, insanely shot. Like the more I think about it for the time frame and like the movies that I've watched that were made around that same time, it is incredibly modern. I'm like I said multiple times, I really like the wacky world physics of Buster Keaton. I like the way that he tells those kind of stories. So I'm glad that I got to force a bunch of people to watch it. Which is really why I do these media clubs. It's just to force people to watch things I like.
I mean, that's a good reason to do it. So I guess I don't know, the great stone face of Buster Keaton.
Yes.
What do we think of his performance? He doesn't react, which is a very interesting acting technique of just subtle reactions.
Yeah, no, he's very deadpan. I think it works really well, contrasted against the ridiculousness of the situations that he puts himself in.
The double takes of a yeah.
I think it also solidifies that like his entire world is different. Like he's living in an alternate reality. The things that he is pulling off are not unusual for whatever world it is he lives in. He doesn't have to have reactions to things because that's just how everything works. But yeah, I really like his deadpan. I think my favorite shot from it is just him sitting on the train just staring forward. And they do it like multiple times. Like he'll do something ridiculous and then he'll just like sit down and it will just be like him staring into the distance for a while and then he'll get up and do something else ridiculous.
My favorite was definitely the part where he fires the cannon into the sky accidentally. And then he's like looking up and he's like, "Oh, that's weird." And then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh shoot, that's going to come back down right here."
Yeah.
Where everybody pulls blanks from cannons and he's like walking in front of them while it's happening. Yeah, there's a lot of this movie that you watch and you're just like, and there's a lawsuit, and there's a lawsuit, and there's a lawsuit.
Wow. He's probably not going to sue himself.
It's insane that most of the people from this time frame like died of old age. Like
Yeah.
Disease.
Lots
of people died of diseases.
Well, him also, he lived until, I mean, he died in 1966 and he was still working. There's an episode of Twilight Zone with Buster Keaton in it, which is
Wow.
So he like I think he did The General. He did a couple of movies after that, and I think he kind of just descended into alcoholism and stayed there for like a good chunk of time until he pretty much was already like into the legacy stage of his work. So when he finally came back, that's what it was. So there's like this stretch of period where he just disappeared and then he comes back as like a guest star on things, and like you have him giving interviews and he does like a lot of his own like biography stuff, and that's how he spent his later years, I think. I'm not reading that. I just think I read that before. I actually have a biography on him that I've never read.
he shows up and it's a mad, 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 mad world. Yeah, he was working right up until he died.
Yeah. I think he felt like he had to catch up to the times a little bit since he had such a long time frame off.
It's also really hard to not perform when you're a performer. Like it's you always want to do it again. That's why you get so many, and not just speaking as a performer, but that's why you get all these older actors who are like, no, I'm going to retire, and then a year later they're in movies again.
I think that's just everybody. My dad retired recently, and I am waiting for the phone call that he got bored and found a new job.
My uncle retired a few years ago, and he is having so much fun golfing and remodeling his new house.
So, so he's the and he died in Woodland Hills.
Yeah.
Oh.
Buried in Forest Lawn.
Yeah, we can go see him.
Like everybody else.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I don't really have questions for you guys on this one. I was just really excited to have you guys watch it, and yeah, I think for that silent film era, it's kind of just a journey to watch them, because you're right, you do have to like pay attention to it. It's not something you can put on in the background and then like think about later on. Like you have to be there like in the moment, and I think that's why I struggle with watching a lot of them.
Yeah,
I really love the shorts. I struggle when it gets to these long movies.
I liked a lot of the very subtle physical comedy that he would interject, like when she was sleeping on his knees. Oh, where did Ryan?
Hi, Ryan. It's okay.
When she was sleeping on his knees in the forest, and then he like woke her up the next morning, and then like had to like physically straighten his legs.
Yes.
That was really funny. It was a nice little detail.
Yeah. Another really interesting thing about Buster Keaton is you will notice, maybe you won't, because you don't like watch all of his stuff, a lot of people mimic him directly. Like you can find direct imitations of him, especially in like Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson will directly copy shots from Buster Keaton movies. They kind of have that same geometry play, which is something that's brought up in that video, which is, I looked it up. It's not Nerdwriter. It's actually Every Frame a Painting, which is another great channel for film things. But yeah, the playing with like the camera is what you see sort of thing. And so I think Wes Anderson has that same kind of attention to detail in how the camera is laid out. And so he mimics a lot of Buster Keaton things in his films.
Yeah, I just can't stop thinking about being sympathetic to the South. Like and after, what is it, only like 50 years after the war, or like 40 years after the war ended, something like that.
Something like
that's a bold choice, to be sure.
It's an incredibly bold choice. There weren't many times, because you keep saying like sympathetic towards the South. I didn't really find myself sympathetic towards either side. I think I was just sympathetic for this one guy who was a soldier for the South, or wanted to be a soldier for the South.
Right. And then I'm so conditioned by modern media around that kind of thing, where I kept expecting him to realize that he was on the wrong side, and like and like be offered the Confederate uniform and be like, oh no. But that's not what happened.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't government propaganda. Well, a different government propaganda, I guess.
I mean, I have a background in classical music, so when I think about watching movies and media, I also have to go back to opera, where everything is incredibly controversial. So I think I'm just a little bit in the different mindset for that one.
It was a choice.
It was a choice, and it's an interesting one, but I don't think it was the message of the movie. So I think I can like separate those two a little bit.
Could you imagine making a comedy that takes place in the Iraqi war, right? Like, it'd be hilarious. And I don't know who else could do it. I can't think of a single actor. I'm like, you know what? I bet Jim Carrey could really make that funny. Will Ferrell.
Or think about like an equivalent type film set in Nazi Germany. Like, it's so weird. Like, I don't know. I think that's why I'm having a hard time with it, because like,
right.
Like, I understand, like I said before, not all Southerners were,
right. Obviously, yes. Most were not slave owners, right?
No. And not all of them agreed with what the South was doing. And, there were abolitionists on both sides at the time. But I don't know, just framing it in this way is a little, I found myself kind of uncomfortable at times. Like, not the whole film, obviously, because most of it, you're not even thinking about that.
Right. But I feel like Nazi Germany is far enough away, and at this point, just because we got like Jojo Rabbit, which was a comedy, but also a drama, which is what this is too. So I guess it could still be done. It's just, boy.
It is a choice, to be sure.
Well, we'll have to start working on the next big physical slapstick comedy. Death of Stalin was funny.
Death of Stalin was pretty funny. I mean, in the same vein of the jokes weren't haha funny, but the situation was funny, which is a kind of comedy that I enjoy a lot more than Ryan does. But
I haven't seen it, or Jojo Rabbit.
Okay.
Jojo Rabbit is actually on my list of possible movies to watch in the future. The reason why it's getting pushed down farther and farther is that I can't find it on like a streaming service that everybody has access to.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Which is honestly my biggest challenge with Movie Club.
I mean, should we do the Great Dictator, which was basically Nazi. It was basically Hitler, but Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, that's the Charlie Chaplin movie. I watched it last year.
Ah,
Um,
Yeah. That one, I mean, it's a little different than this though, because
right.
making
Yes.
fun of him. It's
Yes.
not, which this film I feel like made a lot. It made the Union out to be like a bunch of bumbling doofuses most of the time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would argue that everybody in this movie is a bumbling doofus.
Kinda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We never see her brother again. I wonder if her brother survives. We see the dad in a chair. So
Well, because the start of the movie is when she gets on the train the first time, her brother is there with a broken arm, and she says, "I will let you know as soon as I know that father's well." So her dad was injured. She was on the train going to visit her dad.
Okay. I didn't
And her
remember
her brother stayed home, and he had a broken arm. His arm was just in a cast, and I just remember being like, so we've done a weird time skip here. But
I like how the evil Union soldier who had like eyeliner, it's like super sinister eyes.
I mean, everybody had stark eyeliner. Like
except for this one dude who, like, I think he was a general for the Union, and every single time he came onto the screen, I'm like, and there's just a normal dude. Like, it just like looks like someone's dad. And everybody else has like, the dramatic, like, you can tell that like when they were there, their face was probably just like chalk white with like big red cheeks. And then just some guy that they forgot to put in the makeup chair.
And like charcoal around their eyes.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, I can't even imagine what their eye makeup was made out of. Just pure asbestos. I don't know.
Lead paint.
Yeah, right.
Pretty sure not even paint, charcoal,
just pure lead. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably.
All right, so I have to go through my movie list to find a movie for next month. I've been playing with the idea of mostly for like the book club side of things, but having people choose. So like give people like a couple of options and see what people are interested in that month. But I think I know what I'm going to pick, and it is a movie that I am also going to make Ryan watch with me.
Okay. Guess I'm in it. I was gonna pick, can we do Beverly Hills Ninja? I was just talking about that today. Does it hold up? Is it too offensive to watch now?
Oh, you know which one would be along that line that I have been wanting to watch that I didn't watch when it came out that everybody was talking about was what was the name of dang it. It was like right on the tongue. It was the Kung Pao.
Like
Fist of Fury?
Fist of Fury, yeah.
That is an interesting movie. It has a very troubled production. It got lost in production hell for a long time under different names.
Wait.
Is it Fist of Fury or whatever?
Wait, are we talking about the more recent one, or are we talking
the animated one, the Michael Cera and
No.
I think she's talking older. Are you like talking like I know what movie
I'm talking about that terrible animated film.
I know what you're talking about.
No, not that one.
Okay.
Are we talking about like a kung fu hustle kind of thing?
Is that what it was called?
I don't know if it was Kung Fu Hustle.
I mean, Kung Fu Hustle is amazing.
It's a good
Kung
movie.
Pao Enter the Fist. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Kung Fu. Oh,
Kung Pao Enter the
Fist. It's very offensive.
Oh, okay, Steve Odenkirk's movie. Okay, from 2002. I have that on DVD. I love that movie.
It has very mixed like reception in that like people either love it or they hate it, and it's very controversial.
You can't watch it before 10 p.m. You just the jokes don't hit right if you're not just a little tired.
Unless you're
should we watch it now? We have pizza.
And I have it on DVD. So
Yeah, look, we have everything lined up, Ryan. We can do this right now.
yeah. Steve Odenkirk, famous for his thumb wars, where it's a bunch of thumbs doing Star Wars, and he puts the faces on the thumb.
Oh, did he do those? Yeah, I
He
think
did.
I did see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
back when I was
Oh
really
man.
big into the ridiculous parodies like Spaceballs and all those movies
Oh,
in high
Spaceballs,
school.
so good. We're getting a sequel to History of the World, which I am torn about in the term of Spaceballs. Anyways,
But yeah, that's one that I never saw, and I know it has a lot of like mixed reactions among like either people really really love it or they find it really offensive.
I'll
And
be completely honest, I don't think I've ever seen it.
he
interesting.
laughs maniacally.
Yeah, it looks like Steve Odenkirk is not still in the business. He had a good run though. He did some good shows. The Nutty
Wow.
Professor remake, Jimmy Neutron, Evan
So-
Almighty, Bruce
So
Almighty.
that History of the World Part 2 is actually scheduled to premiere on March 6th.
Yeah, it looks. The first one's so good.
I remember watching it and like when I was young and I was like, "Oh man, I love this." And then I never watched it again and I still think about it sometimes.
I've never
Um,
seen
You've not seen it? You have to see History of the World Part 1.
History of the
It
World Part
is
1 is pretty good and I think you'll like it.
so good. And I hope we get Jews in space. Fingers crossed. Sorry, there's a preview. There's a preview at the end of the movie for the sequel, and it's a bunch of like Stars of David flying through space. It just says Jews in space. Oh. If we don't get a reference, at least I'll be mad.
Don't tell the right wing. They already have their conspiracies about that.
Oh, the space lasers. Yeah, the Jewish space laser. I forgot about the Jewish space laser. Oh.
Anyways, History of the World Part 2, it looks like it's going to be on Hulu in March. And I don't know anything about it other than Mel Brooks is producing it and Nick Kroll's in it.
Yes, they got a pretty solid cast. It's just
so is Wanda Sykes is in it.
Oh, I love Wanda Sykes.
She's in Velma though, and that didn't save.
I have not watched it. I've heard horrible things though. But
it's bad.
I mean, to be fair, you can't really tell from previews what something's going to look like. Everybody is raving about the new Puss in Boots, and it looked terrible from the previews. Like,
I mean, do we talk about Paddington 2?
Oh my God, Paddington 2.
Everyone loves Paddington 2.
They do?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I don't know why this is. We watched Paddington 2 because a friend of mine has a kid who loves Paddington. And she was like, yeah, I got forced to go see it. Paddington 2 is the best movie I saw this year. and like she raved about it, and Ryan and I were like, we should go see this.
Oh no, a bunch of people.
Not just her, like it's like people consistently love Paddington 2. And I will
made
say
reference to it in a movie we were watching. It was like Glass Onion or something. They were talking about, well, there's no Paddington 2, is it?
Yeah. It is, for some reason, Paddington 2 is the joke of the community of just being the best movie that's ever existed. Ryan and I watched it. It's a solid movie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. I won't say it's the best movie that I've ever seen, but like it was a good movie, and I didn't watch the first one. So.
I am very skeptical about Puss in Boots, but I haven't seen it, and I've seen a lot of people who I consider very like critical of films say that it's actually really good. So
I mean, the formula seems right. It seems structurally sound, right? Like he's on a quest to gain either immortality or get more lives, and he finds a reason to live along the way.
I don't know. I mean, the previews made it look like trash, so
fair. But Antonio Banderas. But what was the movie you were talking about, Rebecca, that you had, or is there's a list of movies we're gonna watch for next week?
Next week?
Or next month.
Well, also
or next week.
Next week is next month. So
yes, fair.
Yeah, I have an ongoing list online of I take suggestions. I don't know if anybody's I can see that no one's watching it now, but if they come back and they've made it this far through all of our going back and forth.
So add Kung Pao to the list. Beverly Hills Ninja.
There's
What
a
was
suggestion box.
Yeah.
History of the World, Part
I
1.
think
Actually-
Miguel said he was going to add some stuff in there. I don't know if he did or not.
I don't get notifications when people do, so I just kind of go in occasionally when I'm updating the list and see. So you might not get immediate notification, but I will see it eventually.
Oh, you know what would be a good one to add to our list too at some point would be Life of Brian.
Yeah.
Good movie, good flick. But is it the best Monty Python movie?
That would be for the discussion.
I mean, more underrated, I think, is what was it? The This Is Life, or and now for something completely different. Anyway,
we have that shirt.
Wasn't there a Monty Python documentary by that name?
I think you're right, because that was how they segued in there when it was a TV show.
Yeah.
These are all wonderful suggestions.
Monty Python TV show.
Yeah, it was just called The Meaning of Life.
Yeah.
Oh, The Meaning of Life. Yeah.
Right.
Right. I've heard of that one. I haven't seen it.
I'm sure we will get a ton of people who want to join for a Monty Python call. But I don't think that's going to be next month.
Fair enough. She has her list of what's the word I'm thinking of selections.
I try to keep up with it just because I know that if I forget about it, it's going to be like the 31st of a month and I'll be like, oh no. So I try to just I have a list and then I switch them around pretty regularly, but I always have a backup.
That's fair.
So,
did I add to the suggestion form Imogen Heap?
You did.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I really like that album.
Yeah. You have access to the Google Doc. I actually
I do? Oh.
I actually now have it that all the form responses automatically update.
We should pivot into It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which also has Buster Keaton cameo. All the movies should be linked by tangentially.
Difficult because we've watched very different movies so far.
I try to switch it up.
But how many steps away from Kevin Bacon is it?
A wonderful question.
The first one we watched was Silence of the Lambs, and then we watched Snatch, and now this.
Yeah.
So
hey, wait a minute. These are all movies I watched. Wait.
Kind of hard to link those.
I mean, we've linked them by they're all movies that Ryan has watched.
It's true.
Recently.
Yeah.
They're all movies that the three of us have watched recently.
It's almost like I forced Ryan to watch movies with me.
But I bet you could do Jodie Foster or Anthony Hopkins to Brad Pitt pretty quick. Awesome. I bet there's a couple movies where they're...
Okay, so we're going to go Jodie Foster.
Oh, we're doing that. Okay.
The Buster Keaton.
Jodie Foster.
And here's what it is. Jodie Foster, Buster Keaton was in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Right.
With Marvin Kaplan, who was in Freaky Friday.
Oh,
which Jodie Foster was in.
There it is. There it is. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. A lot of people. Or what was they made a remake with years later that was terrible. I'll look that up.
Mad World?
No, it was called... Well, I guess they actually had an official reboot, and then there was another... It doesn't matter. Anyway, it's not important.
It seems like we're just going to need to get everybody from one degree of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, and we'll just have all these linked.
Rat Race, that was the one.
Oh. because that's the Buster Keaton connection to all of these actors.
I don't know. I vote that we just watch movies that we want to watch.
But if you do that, you only watch things you like.
I'm a huge fan of just like picking random things and seeing how it works out. It's how I run like book clubs as well.
I think
not this one.
So far, it's worked well, because this is definitely not a film I would have watched on my own. And yeah, so.
Well.
Oh, and I mean, not relevant to this discussion, but other things, like I had never heard that Tracy Chapman album before, and I loved it. So thanks for introducing me to new things.
Yay.
New old things.
I was
New
like,
to
oh,
you.
somebody's else in there, but it's just me in a different tab.
Oh, interesting.
For my Google sheet, it was like, somebody else is in your Google sheet. It was me.
Oh.
Oh, was it an anonymous unicorn or something?
Sloth.
Oh.
All right. I don't have anything else. So any final thoughts on the general?
Oh, did you watch the colorized version or the black and white version?
Black
Out of
and
curiosity. White. Interesting. Okay. We also did the black and white. I was just curious if the colorized version was different at all.
I didn't realize there was one.
Yeah. I in general don't like watching colorized versions of old like movies, like feature length movies. To bring it back to A Journey to the Moon, Netflix, at least they used to have a colorized version of Journey to the Moon that like had a dope soundtrack behind it, and it just felt like it was like some sort of weird trip.
Right. Well,
And
a
I
lot
could.
Of them are.
Well, it definitely was a film that had a big impact on one of my favorite artists of all time, the Smashing Pumpkins. So.
Okay.
The music video to which song is it? Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Yeah.
Is based on Journey to the Moon. And it's a beautiful music video.
I thought you meant the general. I'm like, I don't remember that music video. There's a bunch of Smashing Pumpkins music over the general footage, which they could. It's public domain.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past those guys to do something weird like that. But
I mean, we could reshoot it. We could get the rights have lapsed. We can make our own.
Hey, Billy Corbin, we have an amazing idea. You have
to. We'll watch something a little bit newer.
What?
Next time.
Boo. Older. Let's go older.
Can't get much older than 1926.
I think I am going to send Beckett a Charlie Chaplin thing that's like 30 minutes long, but it's my favorite one that he's done, just so you can make that comparison.
The only reference I have for Charlie Chaplin is the very select few things of his that we watched in film school, and Benny and June.
We could do some the Marx Brothers. We could do some Groucho Marx. Some Duck Soup, maybe? Duck Soup's great. It's not older, but...
Put it on the form.
Every now and then I'll just be like, it's time for Ryan to pick one. And I'll pull something out of nowhere. Because I do like research.
Death to Smoochie. That's right. Death to Smoochie next month.
I'm scared. Howard the Duck.
Yes. Especially when you realize that there is a child in that costume for the whole movie.
Oh my God.
That's right. Including the sex scene.
Why? Why did you have to tell me this?
But on that note, I'm going to finish my pizza.
Sounds good. And thanks to those out in the audience who either tuned in for a minute or are catching us on the replay. we'll be back next month with a new selection. So hang out, look out in the Facebook group for what we'll be watching. And if you want to join in on a panel like this, let us know. And we'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.